Welcome back. Today we continue to talk about FDR and the New Deal, and today's topic is the beginning of the New Deal. From FDR's first day in office, he focused on mobilizing the federal government to rescue the nation from the Great Depression. He pledged to execute the New Deal, quote, promptly, fearlessly, and generously, end quote. FDR promised to create government policies based not only on the advice of government officials, but on the needs of, quote, the forgotten, the unrecognized, but the indispensable units of economic power, the forgotten man at the bottom of the economic pyramid, end quote. To jumpstart the New Deal, FDR declared a bank holiday the day after he assumed the presidency. This decision temporarily shut down every bank nationwide to prevent the public from fearfully withdrawing all of its savings and gold. He then called a special session of Congress, embarking on a remarkable period of lawmaking called the 100 Days. Within 1 week, Congress, at times taking only 40 minutes to discuss a particular bill, created both the Emergency Banking Relief Act and the Economy Act to balance the federal budget. While these laws were essentially leftovers from the Hoover administration and conservative in nature, their quick passage reinforced the public's belief that FDR was a man of action. By the summer of 1933, 3/4 of America's banks were back in business, and $1 billion worth of deposits had been returned to the banks. In addition, as part of the National Industrial Recovery Act, Congress set aside $3 billion for such public works projects as building roads, tunnels, and housing projects, which would create thousands of jobs. Congress also established guidelines for fair wages, hours, and work conditions for industrial labor. These measures, together with the banking legislation, were key components of FDR's approach to economic recovery. As Congress tried to help businesses and banks recover from the Great Depression, it also sought to relieve poor people's daily hardship. The direct relief effort during the 100 Days established the Federal Emergency Relief Administration, or the FERA, which provided $500 million in grants for the unemployed. However, FERA did not provide long-term plans to create jobs. To provide relief to farmers, Congress passed the Agricultural Adjustment Act, or the AAA, which raised market prices for crops and livestock. Agricultural prices were at rock bottom due to a tremendous surplus of goods on the market. The AAA encouraged farmers to plow under or burn millions of acres of wheat, cotton, and other crops to reduce the surplus and raise prices. In return for destroying their crops, the government paid farmers a total of $1.5 billion in subsidies between 1933 and 1936. However, the AAA's policies were far from uncontroversial. People protested the destruction of perfectly good crops, and even AAA leaders winced at the slaughter of over 6 million hogs. Turning our attention to other New Deal reform efforts, we learn about the TVA. FDR's administration experimented with long-term economic reform, even as it scrambled to provide poor people with short-term relief. One of the most notable pieces of reform legislation enacted during the 100 Days established the Tennessee Valley Authority, or the TVA. The TVA built dams along the powerful Tennessee River that harnessed the river's flow to generate cheap electrical power. It also erected numerous electrical power plants in Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, and other states in the Tennessee Valley. As a result, local private utility companies, whose prices were typically really high, found themselves competing with the federal government for customers. Thanks to the TVA, some of the nation's poorest citizens were finally able to afford electrical lights and power to operate their farm machinery. In addition, the long-term benefits of dams and electricity production included flood control, new factories and jobs, and an influx of professionals to serve economically revived rural areas. Now, there were several factors that contributed to the overall early success of FDR's New Deal. First, both Republicans and Democrats were eager to enact legislation to end the Great Depression. Therefore, they cooperated more easily in Congress, and they passed legislation quickly and efficiently. Second, Roosevelt skillfully sought advice on the New Deal from a diverse group of imaginative intellectuals and cabinet advisors whom he referred to as the Brain Trust. Finally, FDR won the American people's support of the New Deal by giving 13 fireside chats on public radio. At least 12 speechwriters composed personable, informal talks that FDR delivered to millions of his friends in their living rooms and kitchens. During these talks, FDR warmly explained the simple idea behind major new pieces of legislation, such as the Banking Act. In this way, FDR convinced Americans that he had not forgotten their concerns, and they responded with a swell of affection for the president.